tonight. All eyes are on the United States as voters head to the polls to choose their next president. The challenge of getting people to vote in municipal elections following the provincial election. A Spiritwood family has abandoned their house because of a bat infestation.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, November 5th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for watching. Decision Day has arrived in the United States. Americans are casting their votes, and they're doing so amid expectations of a cliffhanger result and concerns about possible violence. From Washington, Karen Pauls reports.
Around Washington, more barricades, more police presence, even some businesses boarded up. Concern about a repeat of the 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters. There was a man arrested at the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center Tuesday. Police say he smelled like fuel.
We found a flare gun, a lighter, and a torch lighter in his jacket.
The National Guard has also been dispatched to many states. At some polling stations, there are metal detectors and police officers. Law enforcement using drones to monitor activity around polling places. There are even snipers on standby for deployment. Among those voting today, the Republican candidates for president and vice president, Donald Trump and his running mate, J.D. Vance. Trump says he's confident.
Look, I ran a great campaign. I think it was maybe the best of the three. Of course, there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people.
Vance and Trump will watch the election results from his home at Mar-a-Lago. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is in Washington, getting briefings and doing some radio interviews. She and her running mate, Tim Walz, voted in advance polls. Walz stopped by a diner in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to encourage voters to vote in what he called a free and open election.
And I think the choice couldn't be starker. We saw the closing arguments of one of hopefulness, unity, and a focus on the middle class. The other one of dark, divisive, focused on himself.
Harris will host an election watch party on the campus where she went to school, at Howard University. The race remains tight, and results could be slow to come in, which means that even when the night ends, Americans still may not know who their next president will be. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Washington.
Here in Saskatchewan, American voters are anxiously waiting to find out who will be the next president. With about 600,000 Americans living in Canada who are eligible to vote in the U.S. election, some analysts say those votes could be the deciding factor. For American voters like Heather Ross, the election is make or break.
The U.S. has never been close to a perfect country in any way, but this, I think, would be the end of it as a democracy. And I think people will say, well, you're exaggerating or you're panicking, but when somebody says, I want to be a dictator, believe them.
I think with everybody, I've increased the amount I drink, and just because this is very stressful. I mean, come on, we all know what Trump was like for 4 years, and then we're back here, Groundhog Day again, with him against a woman.
I was full of a lot of righteous anger and rage on Friday night when I was wheeled into surgery, because my diagnosis or prognosis in many states would have been death.
It's not just something that's happening in the U.S. I think if we look even the elections here in Saskatchewan, we see this sort of urban-rural divide. So this polarization is happening in sort of multiple places and for multiple reasons.
We did reach out to a number of Republicans who declined to be interviewed. McQuinn says the U.S. election has been focused less on policy and more on vibes and identity politics, and he's hopeful it does not drag on for weeks. Ottawa says it is prepared to work with whoever is elected. The Foreign Affairs Minister says Canada is better situated than before, no matter the outcome.
We will be ready. We will let the American people decide who they want in the Oval Office. Meanwhile, we've been preparing for this for months through our diplomatic network across the US, but also around the world. And so you can rest assured that this government is going to be able to address issues that are important to Canadians, notwithstanding who the American people will decide.
Minister Joly pointed out the Trudeau administration has experience working with Obama, Trump, and Biden. So while she wouldn't offer any specifics, Joly says they've been working behind the scenes to make sure Canada's relationship with either administration will be solid. Parts of our province have been getting a taste of winter today, a messy mix of rain and snow. And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, has been tracking it all. Ethan, what are we seeing so far?
Well, quite a bit of snow falling into southwestern Saskatchewan. Radar picking this up, especially around the Cypress Hills a little bit earlier this afternoon. But even as we've gone through the day, we've started to see this system move eastward, and we've been picking up some rain at times around the Regina area, but also some big fluffy flakes as well. And that's been moving into southeastern parts of the province. This is a look at Gull Lake a little earlier on Tuesday afternoon, and some, slush-covered roads out there. This courtesy of a highway camera from the highway hotline. We've been seeing that slush sticking around in many locations, and we have had reports that Highway 21 in between the Maple Creek and Cypress Hills area has travel not recommended at times this afternoon and this evening. We still do have a snowfall warning that'll last likely into the overnight tonight for that part of the province before that drops off. But just because the snow is gone doesn't mean our winter-like weather is gone either, Sam. I'll have the details on that coming up in my full forecast.
That's true. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Back here at home, municipal elections get underway a week from tomorrow. And as Alexander Kwan reports, all these closely timed elections can make it hard to get people out to the polls.
It's been just over a week since Saskatchewan went to the polls for a provincial election. And in another week, they'll be asked to do it again. This time in municipalities. It's a familiar pattern in Saskatchewan. For the second time in 8 years, cities will choose new leaders a couple weeks after the provincial election. One of Regina's top civil servants says that makes it difficult to get people to vote.
There's always a challenge with the provincial election being about less than 2 weeks prior. However, we have a very large list of candidates. So I'm hoping that that does generate interest.
In 2016 and 2020, voter turnout in Regina's civic elections hovered around 20%. Saskatoon was higher, with 40% in 2016 and 27% turnout in 2020. One expert says it shows people have less interest in municipal politics.
And that lower interest reduces the likelihood that they'll turn out to vote.
Lucas says because municipal elections in Saskatchewan don't have parties, it means voters have to do more work, researching the views and policy plans of candidates. That takes interest and commitment.
So I do think that the closer you get in time, the more this is a concern. And even if it was just a matter of months rather than weeks, it might make a difference and it's probably worth considering.
After the 2020 election, municipalities across the province tried to lobby the provincial government to change the municipal election date. It didn't happen. In a statement, the province says it's because urban and rural municipalities couldn't come to a consensus on a new date. The government wants that consensus before it will consider changes. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
A series of mistakes were uncovered from BC's recent provincial election. The province's election agency discovered that a ballot box containing more than 800 votes was not counted. It also found 14 votes were not counted in a tightly fought riding that was won by the NDP. Election officials say the errors did not affect the final results of the vote. The leader, though, of the provincial Conservatives is calling for an independent review. The Conservatives narrowly lost the election to the NDP, which formed a majority government by just a single seat. Saskatchewan's Ministry of Health has issued an overdose alert for Saskatoon. It comes after a third suspected fatal drug overdose linked to a substance circulating in the city. The alert warns that a white powdery substance was found in 2 of 3 suspected drug toxicity deaths in 24 hours. The origin and composition of the substance isn't known. Harm reduction advocates say testing a personal drug supply is one way to stay safe, and Prairie Harm Reduction is one place that does distribute those testing strips.
We see an increase of a substance that's come in from somewhere that has increased risk, and then it kind of cycles out. Where we've seen situations where stuff has come in and that is being maintained. So it's hard to tell right away what is happening. The most vital thing is to get it tested.
Saskatoon police issued a news release Friday night saying they were investigating 2 deaths. They also warned about a potentially fatal cocaine in Saskatoon. The provincial coroner says there were 113 confirmed and suspected drug toxicity deaths in the first 3 months of this year. A pretty fall moment in Saskatoon today. All those leaves, be grateful you are not raking those, but you may have to dig out some warmer clothes. Eason will have more in your forecast after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A Spiritwood family has had to abandon their house because of a severe bat infestation. We first brought you their story last year when the family was begging for help to get rid of the bats. Now, facing financial ruin, they've handed the keys to their house back to the bank.
This large beam that runs, that's where we hear them.
Started with just one bat in the living room, and then the problem quickly, it became apparent really quickly that it was more than just a random bat. And it turned out that they were in our roof and our walls. Everywhere we turned, we just came up against the same obstacles that, like, no, it was our responsibility to remove them legally. It was our cost, and there was really nothing that could be done to help us. So the bank couldn't help us. The Ministry of Environment couldn't help us. The province couldn't help us. We even asked for some federal help, and there was none there. And I mean, it just wasn't feasible for us to take out another $150,000 to gut the house and get them out. So it was really our only option. So by doing that, it was voluntary, but it still presented as a foreclosure. You know, as far as the bank is concerned, we just stopped making our mortgage payments. So we lost our credit and we lost our down payment, obviously. We lost our home. So yeah, we basically lost everything. Because people have said to us, well, why didn't you just kill them? Well, because they would get back in. Or why didn't you just, you know, everybody always had a, well, why didn't you just? But I mean, we definitely investigated every option before we made this decision. I mean, it's unlikely, yeah, that a bat is going to bite you in your sleep, and it's unlikely that the bat's going to have rabies. But the fact of the matter is, it's still possible. Who wants to bring, like, you know, my nieces, my brother, who wants to bring my nieces to my house for the weekend with that potential risk? Not to mention that, like, it was creepy and scary for little kids. Like, they were really, really loud in my daughter's walls. We lost everything. Plus, we still have some debt that we're trying to, like, you know, get out of from the house itself. And we can't buy anything for, you know, up to 7 years. We can't trade our vehicles. We can't even finance a new computer because we just have no credit whatsoever. I'm relieved to be out of the house, but it really makes me angry that that was really what it came down to, that was our only option.
It was nice of Mother Nature to hold off on the snow until after the Riders hosted that home playoff game. And today, in the cloudy, wet weather, the green and white were back to practice. After beating the BC Lions in the West semi-final, the squad now turns its attention to the first-place Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The Riders' road to the Grey Cup lands next in the Manitoba capital. 32,000 tickets for this Saturday's game already sold out. It'll be the 4th meeting of the season for these two. Winnipeg leads the season series 2-1 and is looking for a 5th straight trip to the Grey Cup, a place the Riders haven't been in 11 years since they won at home in 2013. Head coach Corey Mace says the team has to embrace the coming chaos.
The kid, you dream of being in games like this. And like I said, you know, they do a good job as a fan base as well. You can't ask for much more, you know, from a player standpoint. That's going to be an awesome game.
We talked about it this morning in team meeting. everybody raise your hand if you thought we were going to be here at this point. Everybody in the room, except some of the new guys, raised their hand. Even some of the new guys raised their hand, so they knew we were going to be here. Just the hard work and how we came together as brothers paid off now.
Well, I just sat back and looked at Mitch Picton, at Logan Furland, at Jackson Ford, the guys that live here, that grew up Rough Rider fans, that have gone through the rough years here, and just seeing the smile on their face and the joy. Those are the things that I think back to and draw on quite a bit when I'm waking up early in the morning, come back in here, when you're tired and sore, whatever it may be. And the love for your teammates, the love for your brothers is really what drives you.
The Riders will make some adjustments for the West Final on the O-line after left tackle Trevor Reed went down against the Lions and did not practice today. Neither did Brian Cox Jr., CJ Rivas, or Kian Schaefer-Baker. The Riders will be back on the field Wednesday and Thursday before traveling to Winnipeg on Friday. Kickoff Saturday is at 5:30.
The weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. Year-end clearance is on now.
Our weather specialist Ethan Williams joins me now. Much different look at Riders practice today from even just yesterday.
Yeah, remember those? Those are snowflakes falling at Mosaic Stadium. And of course, not just falling in Regina, but through lots of south and central Saskatchewan today, especially into the southwestern part of the province. And of course, it was not just the snow that made it feel a little bit more like winter, but our temperatures really taking a bump down from where they've been this last little while into the single digits in many locations, barely above freezing for daytime highs into parts of central Saskatchewan. And yeah, you have to factor in a little bit of wind as well, because it was quite gusty, gusts near 60 in southwestern Saskatchewan, blowing around that snow this afternoon at times. Those are starting to kind of dissipate as we head through the evening here. So where does this system go from here? Well, right now it's kind of starting to move out of west central Saskatchewan, and it's mainly moved its way through south central portions of the province and into the southeast, where the rain will change over to snow as we continue into the wee hours of tomorrow morning. Now, Regina, I think we could pick up a little bit more snow overnight tonight with this, but then it quickly moves out of here by tomorrow morning. We're already looking by 7, 8 o'clock by the commute. Much of that snow will be gone. The clouds clear from west to east through the day tomorrow, and we'll actually see some sunshine, I think, through south and central. Still a little bit of cloud in the north as some flurries are moving through. That is where our next system is going to be moving through as we get into early Thursday morning. Primarily a snow event, I think, for northern Saskatchewan. While south and central stays clear for the next few days, that system will move out, and then we've got another system we have to keep our eye on in the north as we head into early Friday morning. So about 24 hours later, we're getting that next round up there. Now, these snowfall amounts, I think it's probably going to be more in the 2 to 4 centimeter range for Regina and southeastern and south central sections. A lot of that snow probably not going to be accumulating because it's wet snow. We are dropping a few degrees below freezing overnight, so we might get some flakes sticking to the ground. In northern Saskatchewan, I think for you folks there, it's probably upwards of 5 centimeters with those systems over the next couple of days. And if we get some rain with this, could be in the range of about 2 to 4 millimeters, I'm thinking, probably at most. But this is primarily for the far north, Churchill region, La Ronge, Buffalo Narrows. I think you're generally out of the woods in terms of that system. We'll see the winds pick up, though, a little bit as we head into Thursday morning, primarily into northern sections with that next system moving by. And we could even see the winds pick up a little bit in the coming days through south and central. But for Regina, a pretty uneventful next few days after this system moves on through. A couple of chillier nights here before things really warm up as we get into the weekend. There's where the breezes start to pick up a little bit. For Saskatoon, yeah, again, tomorrow we're staying right at normal for this time of year before we see a huge jump up in temperatures as we get through the weekend and into next week. So you might have thought we were done with that temperature roller coaster ride, Sam, but it's still going on.
We have been biding our time for this. It is November 5th.
Yes, we've been very lucky.
Very lucky.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
To mark the imminent arrival of the Eras Tour and Taylor Swift, the City of Toronto is unveiling and declaring the route that connects City Hall and Rogers Centre as the Taylor Swift Way.
That is Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow renaming a busy city street. I feel like I should be using lyrics here. Taylor Swift is set to perform 6 times between November 14th and 23rd. And after those shows are finished, 22 of the signs will be auctioned off, with the money going to the local food bank. We'll be back after the break. Well, as winter attempts to set in, some of the animals at the Saskatoon Forestry Farm Park and Zoo are headed for the heated barns, but others lapping it up and will be happily outside as soon as that -30 weather hits.
This is a really cool time of transition for a lot of our animals, depending on what they are. Like behind us, you can see our Arctic wolves. Our Arctic wolves start growing a much deeper fur, much more dense, getting ready for this cold, chilly winter that's coming. Our snow leopard has their furs coming in very deeply. They also have a very long tail, over 5 feet. They'll wrap their tail around their mouth and sit up high when it's really cold, and that tail will act as like a scarf for you and I to help warm that air coming in and out. Some of our other animals, like our bears, are getting ready to go to sleep. Now, they don't do hibernation. They do what's called torpor. And what that means is their heart rate slows down to about 5. They don't eat. They don't drink. They don't defecate. They just are kind of asleep but awake. They will still get up and kind of walk around occasionally, stick their head out. But right now, like Mistay is 375 kilos, and when he comes out, he'll be about 270 or 280. So they lose a lot of weight during the winter time. Lemurs are indoors. Our naked mole rats are indoors. Their life doesn't change a lot during the winter because they're indoors. We make sure we're keeping their environment what they need, the humidity, the temperature, the light cycle, all of those things. So it just depends on where you're coming around and what the zoo, what you can see and how you can experience this transition.
And if you want to check out the zoo, Ethan, admission is now by donation until spring.
Well, one animal that does not get a choice whether it wants to stay inside or not, the lovely squirrel out here.
Is that the one that's been in the building?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we've had a few of those around here. I think a few of us were as caught off guard as this guy a little bit, and thanks to Susan for sending in this photo. I think if you're in Regina, you're looking for a few more flakes flying this evening, and those may stick to the ground. It's going to be a kind of a chillier start to the morning for us tomorrow, feeling like -12. We'll warm up to around the freezing mark by the noon hour. We should actually have some sunshine by then. It's that northerly flow, that northerly wind that's going to make us feel chilly as well in Saskatoon under mainly cloudy skies tomorrow morning. But then the winds shift from the southwest, bringing us some warmer weather. I think this will be about the best we do, but it'll be better than what we had for today for many of us, Sam.
Will not complain. Thanks for that, Ethan.
You're welcome.
That is it from us tonight. For news any time, head to cbc.ca/Sask. You can subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel or download the CBC News app. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night. Enjoy the election.